God is with you even when you feel alone. This truth reaches into the deepest parts of the human heart, because loneliness is one of the most common and painful experiences people face. You can be surrounded by family, coworkers, or a bustling crowd and still carry a quiet ache inside, a sense that no one truly sees you, understands you, or walks beside you in your hardest moments. But in the midst of that silence, in the moments when you feel most hidden, there is a presence greater than anything you can imagine. God is nearer than your breath, closer than the very thoughts that move through your mind. You may not always feel His presence, but His nearness does not depend on your senses. It depends on His promise. There are times in life when circumstances change suddenly, a relationship breaks, a loved one is lost, a dream collapses, and the world that once felt familiar becomes empty. You look around for comfort, but the people who once supported you seem far away or unable to understand. In those seasons, the loneliness feels overwhelming. But even there, God is beside you. He walks into your sorrow without needing an invitation. He enters your questions without fear. He stands with you when you feel too broken or too numb to reach for Him. Even when you push Him away, He remains steady and faithful, not leaving, not turning His back, not withdrawing His love. Many people believe that if they do not feel God's presence, He must have stepped away. Yet some of the greatest spiritual growth happens in the silence, when it seems like heaven is quiet. In those quiet spaces, God is strengthening you, teaching you to trust, deepening your roots, and shaping you into someone who can endure with confidence. The absence of emotion is not the absence of God. Just as the sun continues to shine even when clouds hide its light, God continues to work even when your heart cannot sense Him. Feelings change, but His presence does not shift with the winds of circumstance. Think of the moments in life when the night feels particularly long, sleepless hours filled with worry, days when you cannot see a way forward, times when your own thoughts turn against you and peace seems unreachable. In those moments, it is easy to wonder if God has forgotten you or moved on to care for someone more deserving. But God does not measure His nearness based on your perfection. He does not retreat when you struggle. He does not grow weary of your repeated prayers or your unanswered questions. He stays. He listens. He surrounds you with a love that does not fade, even when you are too weary to recognize it. You may look back on seasons of your life and realize that the moments you felt most alone were the very moments God carried you. Sometimes His presence is so gentle, so tender, that you only notice it in hindsight, a sudden peace that calmed your heart, a word of encouragement from an unexpected place, strength that appeared just when you thought you had no strength left, a door that opened at the exact moment hope was slipping away. These are not accidents or coincidences. They are signs of a God who walks with you through every valley, every trial, every tear. Even when people fail you, and they will, God does not fail. Human hearts can grow distant, distracted, or divided, but God's heart toward you is constant. He knows every need, every fear, every longing. He sees the hidden battles you fight, the private disappointments you carry, the unspoken burdens that weigh on your spirit. Nothing about you is overlooked. Nothing about your pain is insignificant to Him. His presence is not based on your ability to hold yourself together. It rests on His promise to never leave you or forsake you. There will be days when you question everything, days when your own strength is not enough, days when you feel lost in the maze of your own emotions. Yet even there, God remains your companion. He is with you in the silence of early morning, in the heaviness of midday, in the restless hours of the night. He walks with you into every uncertain tomorrow and stands with you in every difficult today. His presence is the anchor that holds you steady even when your world feels unstable. God is with you even when you feel alone. This truth is not dependent on your mood, your circumstances, or the state of your heart. It is rooted in His unchanging character, in His unbreakable commitment to love, and in His eternal promise to remain by your side through every step of your journey. His timing is perfect. even when life feels delayed. This is one of the hardest truths to accept because human hearts naturally long for immediacy. We want answers now, breakthroughs now, restoration now. But God works on a different timeline, one not shaped by pressure, fear, or impatience. His timing flows from wisdom deeper than our understanding and love stronger than our desire for control. When life feels slow or stagnant, it is easy to assume that nothing is happening, that God has paused his work, or that he has somehow forgotten the promises whispered to your soul. Yet every moment of delay in your life is held within his purposeful plan, whether or not you can see it unfolding. There are seasons when you pray with all your strength, only to hear silence in return. You knock and the door doesn't open. You fight with faith, but the mountain refuses to move. In these seasons, frustration rises as hope gradually drains and waiting becomes a burden. But even in these slow and heavy moments, God is not idle. He is rearranging pieces you cannot see, preparing people you have not met, shaping outcomes you cannot predict. He is aligning circumstances with precision, making sure that when the answer comes, it arrives in the perfect moment. Not too early, not too late, but exactly when it will produce the greatest good in your life. If you received everything at the moment you asked for it, you might settle for blessings that are too small, relationships that are premature, or opportunities that your character is not yet ready to carry. God's delays are not denials, they are protection. He knows when you are strong enough to handle what you're praying for. He knows when the path ahead is clear enough for you to walk without stumbling. He knows when the people involved are prepared to meet you where you're going. His timing takes into account every detail you could never organize on your own. Waiting often exposes the deepest parts of the human heart. In the quiet spaces of delay, fears surface, doubts whisper, and impatience presses in. You begin to wonder whether God has overlooked you or chosen to bless others while passing you by. But the truth is that waiting is not a sign of neglect, it's a sign of intention. God delays because he is building something stronger, safer, richer, and more beautiful than your immediate desire. What feels like slowness to you is often grace in disguise, giving you time to grow into the person who can receive what God intends to give. Consider moments when you wanted something urgently, only to realize later that it would have harmed you if it arrived too soon. A job that wasn't right, a relationship that wasn't healthy, a dream that wasn't ready. Looking back, you can often see how God's timing spared you from heartache and positioned you for something better. But in the moment of waiting, the process feels like hardship. That is why trusting God's timing requires faith. Not faith that things will happen the way you want, but faith that God knows what he is doing, even when you don't. Time with God is never wasted time. Even in the delay, he is shaping your character, strengthening your endurance, refining your desires, and teaching you to rely on him rather than on your own plans. Patience becomes a tool in his hand, carving away anxiety and deepening your trust. When you surrender your timeline to God, you exchange the burden of control for the peace of divine assurance. You learn that the journey is just as important as the destination, and sometimes more transformative. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed hope, every postponed dream becomes an opportunity to lean into God's faithfulness. He sees the past you came from, the obstacles you face now, and the future he is leading you toward. Nothing catches him off guard. Nothing forces him to rush. Nothing pressures him to move before the moment is right. When he prepares a blessing, it arrives with completeness, fully formed, fully timed, fully aligned with his purpose for your life. His timing is perfect, even when life feels delayed, because his vision stretches beyond today. He knows how to weave every moment of waiting into a tapestry of purpose. And when the appointed time comes, everything that once felt slow will suddenly make sense as part of a divine plan far greater than anything you could have created on your own. Hidden seasons are preparation, not abandonment. There are times in life when everything feels quiet, still, and uneventful. Dreams seem paused, Progress seems invisible, and prayers feel as though they drift into emptiness without ever returning. These are the seasons when you wonder if God has stepped back, closed the door, or turned his attention elsewhere. Yet what appears to be inactivity on the surface is often the most crucial work happening beneath. Just as seeds do their deepest growing underground, far from sight, your hidden seasons are shaping you in ways that will one day make sense when the harvest comes into view. People naturally crave visibility, movement, and certainty. When you can see progress, you feel encouraged. When doors open quickly, you feel favored. When circumstances shift in your favor, you feel reassured. But when you enter a season where nothing seems to change, where you feel stuck in the same routines, where opportunities do not appear, and where God's voice seems unusually still, your heart begins to wrestle with questions. Why hasn't anything happened yet? Why does it feel like everyone else is moving forward while you remain in place? Why does God feel distant even though you are trying to stay faithful? These questions are normal, but they do not define the reality of what God is doing within you. Hidden seasons are refining seasons. They reveal the parts of your heart that cannot be seen when life is busy and loud. In the quiet, God brings to the surface insecurities you didn't know you had, fears you didn't realize were controlling you, and wounds that had been buried beneath layers of distraction. He uses stillness to heal what motion would only mask. When everything around you slows down, your soul becomes more aware, more reflective, and more open to transformation. What feels like isolation is often a healing chamber where God works gently and deeply on your inner life. There are gifts that can only grow in hiddenness. Patience matures in stillness. Humility forms when applause is absent. Strength develops when no one is watching. Purpose becomes clearer when the noise fades and your heart learns to listen. God uses these quiet seasons to stretch your faith, to anchor your identity in Him rather than in accomplishments, and to prepare you for responsibilities you cannot yet see. If He were to elevate you before the foundation was strong, the weight of the future could crush you. Preparation is an act of protection, not punishment. Many of the greatest figures throughout history, spiritual and otherwise, experienced long periods of obscurity before stepping into their purpose. They lived through years in which nothing seemed to move, yet everything important was happening beneath the surface. Their hidden seasons forged character, resilience, and wisdom. They walked through the quiet so they could stand in the calling. The same is happening in your life. The silence is not empty. It is full of God's forming hands shaping your destiny with precision. During hidden seasons, God often removes distractions so you can hear Him more clearly. When life is loud, His voice can blend into the noise, but when things grow still, even the faintest whisper becomes noticeable. You may not realize it, but God is teaching you to recognize His voice, to trust Him without evidence, and to anchor your hope in His faithfulness rather than invisible signs. Faith is not learned on mountaintops. It is learned in valleys where dependence becomes your lifeline. One of the most important truths about hidden seasons is that they do not last forever. Just as winter gives way to spring, your season of quiet preparation will eventually give way to visible growth. What God cultivates in private will one day appear in public. What He strengthens in secret will equip you for what He reveals in time. You will step into moments that suddenly make sense of everything you once questioned. The skills you learned without knowing why, the endurance you built without understanding its purpose, the healing you received without realizing your need for it, all of it will converge at the right moment. Hidden seasons are not signs that God has forgotten you. They are signs that He is investing in you. He cares too deeply about your future to rush the process. He loves you too much to let you step into something unprepared. He knows that preparation produces stability, and stability allows blessing to flourish rather than collapse. What feels like stillness is strategy. What feels like silence is shaping. What feels like delay is development. Hidden seasons are preparation, not abandonment. God transforms pain into purpose and beauty. Pain is something every human being encounters, yet it remains one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. When hardship comes, the first questions often rise quickly. Why is this happening? Where is God?